If you need an agenda, we can get you one. Anyone present who wishes to speak in support or against an application, as well as anyone with questions or concerns, will have an opportunity to speak. The committee will make their decision following each application. If there's anyone present who is not an agent or an applicant, but is interested in the decision of the committee, please email our Secretary Treasurer, Sherry Mott. Please list the file number, your full name, mailing address. Copies of the decisions are automatically sent to the applicant and agent within 15 days of the meeting. In order to be kept advised of a possible appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal, you must request that you be sent a copy of the committee's decision on that particular application. Decisions are filed if there are no appeals 20 days after the committee's decision. May I remind everyone that we're being recorded and that everyone has their cell phones on and silent mode. So I will begin with a roll call, and we have Marcel here present with us. Linda?
I'm here, yep.
Okay, and Rudy?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. And Lisa's absent today, and we've lost one committee member to the election. So the first order of business is determine if anyone or members have any disclosures of pecuniary interest. In considering any of the applications that we will be dealing with today, are there any disclosures of interest? Being none, have all members received the minutes of the previous meeting for October? Are there any errors or omissions? If not, can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes, please? Moved by Marcel.
I'll second it.
Linda? All those in favor, Linda?
Yes.
Rudy?
Yes.
Marcel? Yes. And myself. That's carried. Okay. So first up, we have an application that's coming back to us from last month because we didn't give an opportunity to the public to address it. So we're going to redo it, and it's file number BMPL 2022-208, Robert Thomas and Scott Thompson. And the planner can do the report again, please.
Okay. Thank you. Through the chair, and please let me know if anyone can't hear me with my mask on. Recovered from illness, but just out of an abundance of caution, I'm wearing a mask. An application has been received to sever a parcel having a frontage of approximately 236 meters, a width of 229 meters, and a regular depth of 328 meters, and having an area of approximately 19.4 acres, and retain a parcel having an area of 28.26 acres as a creation of a lot. The subject lands are located southwest of the intersection of Blue Line Road and Thompson Road West in the urban area of Waterford. The area of the subject lands cumulatively is roughly 51 acres with 567 meters of frontage on Thompson Road. The lands to be severed are currently vacant in zone development. The lands retained are currently used for agricultural purposes and are zoned agricultural. The subject lands are also designated urban residential. So to provide some historical context, a zoning bylaw amendment, ZMPL 2021-44, was submitted to change the zoning of the lands to be severed from the development zone to the urban residential type 2 zone or R2 zone to facilitate a draft plan of subdivision, which will create lots for single detached homes and semi-detached dwellings. A severance application, BNPL 2018-234, was previously approved, however, was since lapsed, thus requiring the subject application today, BNPL 2022-208. Minor variance application ANPL 2018-235, requesting relief of 2.4 hectares from the minimum lot area of 10 hectares in the development zone, was also previously approved to address the deficiency created through the consent that was previously approved and lapsed in 2018 and is now being reheard today. Our chair discussed the reason that we are rehearing the application today. So just to add transparency, is to address section 45(6) of the Planning Act regarding asking anyone in attendance to speak for or against the application. So cumulatively, staff have received four or five comments concerning this application. 4 were noted, which we have here as attachments that have been circulated to the committee. 2 of them are in regards to the original zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision. And then on the original hearing in September for the severance, they restated that they object to the idea of the zoning bylaw and draft plan of subdivision, but don't object to the idea of the consent. And they've since repeated that comment. So we have a pile of those comments here. Planning staff also received a comment from a resident, which has been attached as attachment 3, which I have available here. And the majority of these comments relate to compatibility issues. So there's Lafarge, which I believe is a cement plant, and Norfolk disposal. So it's the proximity of potential residential uses and proximity to these uses. There's also an automotive area that's noted in this last comment, and traffic congestion. So I did send a response to that more recent comment, kind of explaining the scope of the current consent. It's really used to divide land, and a lot of these compatibility issues are addressed at the stage of the zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision. Thank you, Fabian, for doing that. And just reiterated that the designation is urban residential and the zone is development. So in terms of planning policy, it's conducive towards these ends. And through the planning process, the applicants will have to prove that compatibility meets the PPS official plan and zoning bylaw. Last items in terms of comments, we did receive a note from Hydro One just after the report was written, which was circulated to the agent and committee members. It just highlights that there are no comments or concerns at this time, but just for transparency. I have replicated the conditions attached from the previous report, which was approved by committee in September. The agent has reached out to me in advance requesting conditions 2 through 6 be struck. I have available from the original decision, the email correspondence from development engineering, and reviewed the footage from September, and can conclude that items 2, 4, 5, and 6 can be struck. But my understanding is the request from the director at the September meeting would be to maintain condition 3 to keep a paper trail regarding parkland dedication being applicable to the future subdivision. With that said, staff have reviewed the application and find it consistent with the policies of PPS, the official plan as it relates to consent to sever policies and the urban residential designation. I'm supporting this application, recommended to be approved, subject to conditions, I believe it's 1, 3, 6, and 9. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee have any questions for the planner? No? Does the applicant or agent have anything to add?
Good evening, and through you, Mr. Chair, Nathan Colomea, Burgess Law Group, agent for the applicants, the Thompsons. And I'd just like to raise a few points. These types of applications are always confusing because there's many moving parts. The first important consideration to keep in mind is what application is before you today and what we're asking you to approve. All we're asking you to approve is a severance of bare land. We're not asking you to approve a zoning bylaw. We're not asking you to approve a housing development, simply a consent for severance, which would allow us to transfer existing bare land to someone else, or to ourselves for that matter. And it's also important to keep in mind is many of the concerns raised deal with the development future of the property. Well, the reality is that there's really no guaranteed development of the property whatsoever. Because because the current zoning of the property is development, and that's quite confusing because if you look at what the permitted uses are in the development zone and the zoning bylaw, they're actually quite restrictive. The only permitted uses right now for this property as it stands, again, absent a zoning bylaw or something else to the contrary, the only things permitted right now are a bunkhouse, a single detached dwelling, a farm produce outlet, a home industry, a home occupation, and seasonal storage of recreational vehicles and recreational equipment. So none of the development is even permitted as of right now. And it's really not the subject of this application. So any of the concerns with respect to compatibility, future uses, future development, the number of houses, that would all be to be addressed at a public meeting for any zoning bylaw amendment. Nothing to do with the service today. It's the approval today all allows us to do is transfer the property, doesn't allow us to develop anything further beyond, again, the current uses like a bunkhouse or a single house. Okay. And another factor as well is we are not developing the property. My clients are farmers. We're simply looking to either retain lands or sell it to someone else, right? So again, we are not developing the property. We are not participating whatsoever in the zoning bylaw amendment. We are not participating in the draft plan of subdivision. You're simply seeking severance. Okay. And with respect to the public input, the FAR just correctly identified, again, they have no issues with respect to the consent and the other concerns raised as well. Again, with respect to, well, the impacts of any future housing, again, have nothing to do with this application, and they would be subject to any future development. Because the reality is, at the end of the day, it could be the case that this property is not developed. This is not a guarantee that the required approvals will be obtained. Okay, and my point at the end of all that is we shouldn't be prevented from selling this property and selling it on account of what might happen in the future. And then lastly, if I can just address the conditions. So we do ask that you approve the consent, and we ask that we change the conditions a little bit. Number one, no problem. Number two, while my preference would be that it be struck, I'm willing to, subject to the committee's approval, rather than an undertaking from the owner, we'd be willing to provide an acknowledgement. The reason why an undertaking doesn't work is that an undertaking usually is with respect to a future action to occur. For example, whenever I complete a severance, I have to provide the Secretary Treasurer an undertaking that I will, once the consent's completed and the transfer is registered, I have to provide her with a copy of the receipt of transfer. That's why that undertaking makes sense. But here, again, we're not involved in the draft plan of subdivision. We're not, we're simply looking for the service. So we're happy to say, again, we acknowledge that that will be required, but it's not up to us. It's up to any future developer. So so if I ask or just change the one word, so rather than receipt of an undertaking, happy to provide a written acknowledgement from the owners, just saying we acknowledge that these requirements will be addressed in the future. Okay. And then ask that conditions 3, 4, and 5 be struck in their entirety. Again, these are development conditions and are not applicable to the severance consent today. And then the balance conditions, 6, 7, 8, and 9, they're the standard conditions, and we've in fact already provided the documents for them, so we're happy to keep those. So asking to keep condition 1, keep conditions 6 through 9, and amend condition 2 to read acknowledgement instead of an undertaking. And subject to any of your questions and any replies following anyone else's input, those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
ahead,
Rudy,
Rudy.
I just asked the planner if the planner is amenable to those suggested changes to the conditions by the agent.
Thank you. Through the chair, if in Mr. Palomai's professional opinion, the amendment to condition number 2 meets the intent, ensuring that the transfer is transparent, and that those parkland dedication fees are applicable at the subdivision stage. That should be fine. And yes, conditions 3, 4, and 5 have been confirmed through development engineering. Those can be struck. And then items 1, 6 through 9 are standard conditions and will remain as is.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, Rudy?
Mr. Chairman, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the committee? Does the public have any questions or comments to make to this application? Is there anyone present or online that wishes to speak to this application? Do so now. No? Okay, then we'll move on.
Mr. Chair,
Sorry?
I was going to ask if anybody has any comments.
If anyone wishes to speak for or against the application.
Is there anyone present or online that wishes to speak for or against this application? No? Are there any other additional comments that the applicant would like to make?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the committee? Is there a motion from the committee, please?
Rudy moves approval, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Rudy, thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Linda. So file number BNPL 2022-208 in the name of Robert Thomas and Scott Thompson. And the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot in the urban boundary that meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, and the public input was received and therefore has been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Rudy?
Yes.
And Linda?
Yes.
Myself and Marcel? That's carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so next up we have file number BNPL 2022241, Everett and Nicole Sloan. And the planner can give the report, please.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So an application, we've received 2 applications. One application is for a severance and the other application is for a minor variance to address deficiencies created through the severance application. So the severance application is to sever a parcel having a frontage of just under 50 meters, a width just under 50 meters, a depth of about 61 meters, and having an area of just over 3,000 square meters or 3/4 of an acre. And retain a parcel having an area of 4,000 square meters as the creation of a lot within the hamlet of Vanessa. And the minor variance, as I said, is to recognize the deficiencies created through the severance application to address the deficiency in lot area, where 4,000 square meters is the minimum. The applicant is requiring relief of 933 square meters to result in a lot area of 3,067 square meters. The official plan designation is designated hamlet and it's zoned hamlet residential. In terms of the site characteristics, the subject lands are located to the east of the intersection at Brantford Road and Norfolk County Road 19 west in the hamlet of Vanessa. The lands in total are 7,000 square meters in size, and the area of the retained lands is 4,000 square meters, 1 acre. And the area of the severed lands would be 3,076 square meters. So in 2017, the property went through an official plan amendment that was, the purpose of it was to essentially create the entirety of all the parcels together. So the way that the intention of the official plan amendment was to amend the policy that indicates that in order to do the severance, they would have to do so through a plan of subdivision. They've amended that policy, which allowed them to do a multi-lot severance. So those 3 linear lots at the top were all apart. This was all one at one point in time. So the official plan amendment was approved by council, and the following severance applications were approved by the Committee of Adjustment in June of 2018. So as a result of the previous official plan amendment applications, Development Engineering has reviewed this application, and they've implemented conditions 3, 4, and 5 to ensure that the appropriate studies are conducted. So the reason that they brought this condition forward was because in 2017, the documents in conditions 3, 4, and 5 basically outline that the applicant would be required to conduct a master grading plan, a siltation control plan, a stormwater management report, a traffic impact study, a proof of legal adequate outlet, and additional plans and studies may also be required. So those were required for the lots in the past, so Development Engineering is requiring the same for this proposed severance. So the purpose of this severance application is, and to also support the reduced lot size, the applicant also provided a hydrogeological study to confirm that the soil conditions were suitable for any potential services to demonstrate that the lot is big enough to accommodate well septic systems. So there was public input that was received for this application. I didn't include it as part of the report package because the comments there was comments that were sent this morning, and then there were comments that were just sent at 4 p.m. So I didn't include those as a part of it, but I can speak to them. I have them here on my computer, so I can read them off. One person indicated that they're outlining that they have concerns surrounding the severance, and that they would like the committee to consider their objection to the creation of a new lot. The new lot is smaller than the 1 acre requirement, and only a few years ago it was one of 4 lots created. Now they want to create 2 lots from the one, creating some crowding. This person lives across the road, and the other person indicates the same thing. The previous owner tried to do 5 lots, and they were told they had to do a plan of subdivision. So they're questioning how are they able to do the severance, and they raise concerns surrounding increased traffic as well as the size of the property. So with this, all this being considered, staff are of the opinion that the application meets the intent of the original policy statement, the official plan, and the zoning bylaw amendment, and staff are in support of this application and recommend that it be approved subject to the attached conditions.
Okay. Thanks, Seth. We can address that. Is the applicant or agent in attendance?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. It's Bob Phillips from J.H. Cahoon Engineering Limited. I'm representing the Sloan family tonight in this proposed severance and minor variance. There's actually 2 applications before you. The minor variance being a reduced lot area. As part of our submissions to the county, a hydrogeological study was completed indicating that the smaller sized lot can support a single family home. We were unaware of any of the public comments. We had not received them up until the time of the meeting, but listening to them tonight from the planner, you know, the ability to support private services on this lot and traffic were the concerns. I would suggest to you that one additional home in the area is not a significant traffic and will not have an impact in the area. And as I mentioned before, the hydrogeological study supports the reduced lot size. We've read the planning staff report, and the planner did a great job in outlining the application. We've read the report. We're in support of it. We're in support of all the conditions that have been recommended, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. And your clients are in the audience here. I don't think you have anything to add? No? He's doing a good job. Okay. Is there anyone present online or in person that wishes to speak in favor or opposition to this application? Okay, hearing none. Is there any questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none. No further comments needed from the applicant or the agent? Okay.
No, I think it's been covered.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a motion from the committee?
I'll make a motion. Oh. I'll
So
second
moved by
that.
Marcel, and seconded by Linda. We'll do 241 first. So file number BNPL 2022-241 in the name of Everett and Nicole Sloan. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot within a hamlet, and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, and that public input was received, and therefore has been considered.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah, there's just reading it out here for a second, I'm just adjusting the application as we go here. And therefore has been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Marcel?
Yes.
And Linda?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
Myself? And that is carried. And so we can just go ahead with the variance. We presented everything in both, right?
I supported both of them. They're in tandem.
Okay, and the agent, you're good with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this application, ANPL 2022-242, either for or against? Hearing none, can I get a motion from the committee?
Rudy moves approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Rudy. Seconder?
Linda will second.
Thank you. So file number ANPL 2022-242, Everett and Nicole Sloan, in accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act. The requested relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, and that public input was received and therefore has been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Rudy? Rudy?
Yes.
Thank you. And Linda?
Yes.
And Marcel?
Yes.
And myself? And that too carries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Just give me a minute. Just go straight out and turn right. You're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is file number ANPL 2022-297, Anthony and Peter Capucci, and the planner can give the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct a duplex requiring relief from 83 square meters to the minimum permitted lot area of 450 square meters for a duplex to permit a lot area of 367 square meters. The subject lands have approximately 16 meters of frontage on Metcalf Street South. They're currently vacant. They are designated urban residential and zoned R2. So in proposing to construct a duplex, when looking through the R2 provisions, it creates a deficiency in lot area. Staff have reviewed the concept plan submitted and have not found any additional deficiencies in the zoning bylaw, which includes some key items such as parking and landscaped area. I did receive a comment yesterday on Tuesday, so it wouldn't have been included in the report, but I do have it available to read.
Can you summarize it?
Sure. So in summary, they are opposed to allowing what would be almost 20% of relief from the requirements of the zoning bylaw. They're stating that it would be difficult to put a single family dwelling with the driveway on the size of this lot. They're asking the committee to consider, or to ask the planners who have been to the location as to whether they thought the lot would be sufficient in size to have such a development. And some discussion on development in general, the nature of development. They would also like to be notified of the decision of the committee of adjustment for this purpose.
Okay.
So to address those considerations, staff did complete a site visit and post the yellow sign. Just to add some clarification in terms of the zoning bylaw, if the use was a single detached and the use met all setback requirements, we'd be looking through provisions in the R1B zone, in which case the lot area would be fine and would meet the lot area requirements. So in requesting a duplex, it triggers that minor variance. It's two different areas of the zoning bylaw. So the lot is indeed smaller, but as a planner, when I consider the range of policies that outline the importance of increasing housing, densification, intensification of existing settlement areas, and seeing a concept plan and looking that they can meet the 50% landscape requirement in the parking area, I'm comfortable making a concession on size to meet greater housing objectives outlined by the province and municipality. So with that in mind, I'm of the opinion that the proposal meets the 4 tests for minor variance and recommend that it be approved.
Okay. Is there an applicant or agent online or present? Is that a possible?
Thank you. Yep. Bob Phillips from Cahoon Engineering again.
Okay.
This is an application from the Capucci family for a minor variance to support the construction of a duplex. We did submit a concept plan showing how this would fit on the lot. As you can see from the concept plan, all the requirements for parking, amenity space, setbacks are being maintained here. It's just the form of the development being a duplex. If this was a semi-detached unit, it would comply with the bylaw as well. So you could still get 2 units on this property, but it's just the form being a duplex, with 1 unit above the other. We've read the planning staff report and are fully supportive of its recommendations. And if we can answer any questions here, we'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee have any questions of either the planner or the applicant? Is there anyone present online or here in person that wishes to speak either in favor or in opposition to this application?
I would like to speak, please.
Okay, go ahead and state your name, your address for the record.
My name is Danielle Clark. I
Can you
live
spell,
next door
sorry, can you
to.
spell?
Sorry?
Sorry, can you spell the last name?
CLARK.
Thank you. Your
My
address?
address is 198 Metcalf Street South. I am one of the homeowners that abut to this property.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to object to it.
Okay.
As was stated earlier by, I believe, I didn't catch her name. They are asking for a relief of 18.44% of what is considered to be the minimum size to build. And I understand the Ontario's government's objectives for affordable housing. This area in Simcoe and along Metcalf and Head has been under a lot of development recently, but taking into consideration the homes that already exist, my house, my foundation, which I have a full basement, is 18 inches from their property line. The siding of my house is 12 inches. I should say asbestos siding is 12 inches from the side of their house. My wooden fence, which was built just recently, last year, is about 3 inches from their property. Also, the water runs through the middle of my backyard and to the left of me, their backyards instead of through the road. So the main and the shutoff come up about 4 feet into their property and stick up above the ground about 4 feet. So I have worries of privacy, of drainage, of it not meeting the characteristics of the houses around it, despite all the new development. In the plan, it says that a lot of grading will be needed. Right now, there is almost like a ditch on that side, on that property, that has allowed the water to flow away. I also look at the drawings and I see that they have included that the property line extends back further than my fence line, which is true. But currently, there is a fence that is on that property, meaning that they will have to remove the rear neighbor's fence to their backyard. So the house that is on Short Street, parallel to Metcalf, their fence will be removed.
Is that everything?
Well, privacy-wise, I am a 1.5 story house that was built in 1945, so you can imagine what kind of spare materials were lying around after the war. Like I said, asbestos siding. My living room window will be right where the second parking space of the vehicle would be. I have a dormer, which is my bathroom. The window in there, because the second story, if you'd like to call it, the upstairs of the home, is not full height. You can reach up and touch it, assuming you're about 5'8"-ish. You can touch the ceiling with flat feet. The window is inside of the bathtub shower area, meaning that if the window is opened at all, they will be getting a very interesting show.
Okay, is there anything there the planner would like to address?
Thanks. Through the chair. So I think in similar files, we've had discussions on lot grading and experiences for consent. Just to clarify, lot grading plans are required at the time of the building permit stage. So it's outside of the scope of a minor variance, but it will be addressed at the building permit stage, is my understanding. The fence being removed, I'm a little unclear on the context and the history. Planners evaluate what information we have available at the time of submission. It sounds like this may be potentially a civil issue that has to be determined between the current owners and their neighboring lots to work out between themselves. In terms of privacy, I'm not sure which house is yours. If it's the abutting one that's right next to the lot line, that would suggest to me that potentially your lot and your house isn't meeting the setback requirements, which happens. A lot of houses are non-complying through the local zoning bylaw. But in this case, the proposed duplex is meeting the setbacks. So whether the lot was bigger or smaller, they could still be this close to the lot line based on the zoning bylaw setbacks. And as such, still have to meet height requirements as well, which is often linked with privacy concerns. The only other item I would just add for transparency, and again, I'm not a zoning expert, but just doing a quick review on the R2 provisions for semi-detached. It's 255 square meters per unit, which require a lot size of 510 square meters. So just to clarify, my understanding is that if they did put a semi, they would still need to do a minor variance, just to be transparent about that requirement. And I think that's all for me.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Would the applicant or the agent have anything to add to that, to those comments?
I think the planner is correct about the lot area. It was a mistake on my part. But you know, certainly as part of the development process, there has to be a grading plan done here. In this case, we've got very minor windows located on the side of the house, just to provide some light into a couple areas of staircase. That and those are just concept plans. So certainly, we'll take a look at that before the actual design goes forward. But you know, with respect to drainage, that'll be all handled in accordance with the county standards, and the site plan will be vented through staff prior to its construction. I'm not sure I have anything more to add at this time.
Okay, thanks. And just to be clear, you have parking on both sides of the dwelling?
That's yes, we do.
Okay, so that acts as a buffer somewhat. Does that address some of your concerns, ma'am?
Unfortunately not.
Well,
The water being through the backyard.
But that part of the application, that has really nothing to do with this at this stage. That comes in later at the building permit stage with a grading plan.
Okay.
That's when that's addressed.
So is this the appropriate meeting to speak to whether or not it satisfies all 4 tests laid out in subsection 45 of the Planning Act?
Yes.
Okay, so these, as we found out, aren't technically minor variances due to the percentage, but I believe they do apply still. The privacy issues is just a huge one, and damage to properties. Like I said, my house is built in 1945. The construction from the buildings across the street caused damage to my house. So for one to be built, even if it's just going to be for a parking spot, that will still need to have earth removed, lay down gravel, pea pebble, some type of grading, and whether they use cement or sorry, tarvia there, that's still causing issues. Is there going to be a basement in this dwelling, this duplex? Because
Maybe the applicant. Can the applicant answer that?
Yeah, there will be a basement. It'll be a standard residential construction.
Okay,
thank
so
you.
my apologies. Are you done?
Go ahead now.
So that means that there will be substantial ground removal. The lot does not have any amenities, utilities to it presently because it was a side yard. That means that the road and sidewalk are most likely going to be experiencing some construction. I'm afraid of my roof coming down on my head is kind of, I'm tired, sorry. I'm just tired of all the construction, and I am very, very wary of the drainage issues, because if you have a driveway there, even if you have the drainage go to the road, which I'm not sure if you're even allowed to do,
Well,
where's that
if
water?
I can just
supposed to go?
interject here, I think most of the concerns have been addressed, and some of them come later, the building, excuse me, the building permit stage. And if I were you, I would reach out to the builder or the developer, and the agent could put you in touch with him offline, and you could, work with each other. And I'm sure there's some assurances there that can be taken care of. But much of what you're stating is not covered under this application.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on. Is there anyone else present that wishes to speak either in favor or opposition to this application? Does the committee have anything further? Is there a motion from the committee?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, Marcel and Linda seconds. So file number ANPL 2022-297, Anthony and Peter Capucci. In accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requested relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, contains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that public input was received and therefore has been considered as part of this application. Excuse me. All in favor, Marcel? Yes. And Rudy?
Yes.
And Linda?
Yeah.
And Rudy, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. And that motion is carried. And just before we go on, if the agent, we can supply the agent with this person's contact information, and if you guys want to hook up maybe at a future date. Is that acceptable?
That's acceptable to us.
Thank you very much.
Can I get a clarification on what was just passed? I thought earlier in the discussion, it was decided that it wasn't technically a minor variance due to the percentage of relief requested, but it was passed as such.
Well, it falls under the premise of a minor variance.
Okay. You said this session is all being recorded?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be uploaded to the county's YouTube channel probably tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. File number BMPL 2022-284 in the name of Jeffrey Livingston. And the planner can give the report now, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to sever a parcel having a frontage approximately, scroll through. Frontage of 50 meters, width of 50 meters, a depth of 61 meters, and an area of 3,050 square meters, or 0.75 acres, and retain a parcel having an area of 185 acres. As a severance of a dwelling made surplus from farm amalgamation. This is being reviewed concurrently with a zoning amendment for the retained lands to remove a single attached dwelling as a permitted use in the agricultural zone. So just to add some context, this land was heard through a similar surplus farm severance, BNPL 2022-199, in August of this year, which had the results of retaining a single detached dwelling, which is the subject of this severance today. The farm operation consolidated its property in November of 2021 and maintains ownership of one parcel of land with a single detached dwelling on it. The lands are designated agricultural, hazard land, and provincially significant wetland. A small portion of the land to be retained intersects with these natural heritage features described. A review of the proposed lot to be severed, in addition to comment from the Forestry Operations Division and Long Point Region Conservation Authority, is the opinion of staff the proposal does not constitute a risk to the natural features and their sustaining ecological functions. And LPRCA comments are included as attachment 2. The building department has added a standard condition regarding spatial separation in conditions 4 through 7. And similarly, development engineering has added a standard condition regarding drainage and entrances, which are included as conditions 8 and 9. With that said, my policy review is more full in the application, the report. I'm considering the subject application to be consistent with the policies of PPS and official plan as it relates to consents to sever. I'm supporting this application, recommend it be approved, subject to the attached conditions. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there an agent or applicant present or online? Okay, Mary.
Mary Elder, Elder Plains,
Mhm.
and I think the applicant is on.
Is the applicant online? Mr. Livingston?
He was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything
So
to
I'm
add,
just here
Mary?
for questions, nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee have any questions of either the applicant or the planner?
Just to note the typo, the lapsing date doesn't have 2024 on it, so we'll amend that accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna.
It's
202.
202.
Oh,
Okay.
It should be hard to read. Sorry, guys.
Okay, very good. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak either in favor or in opposition to this application? Okay, hearing none. Is there anything further from the committee? Can I get a motion from the committee?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Linda. Rudy, you second?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So file number BNPL 2022284 in the name of Jeffrey Livingston. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot with an agricultural area and meets the intent of the Norfolk County zoning bylaw, and no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Linda?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
Marcel?
yes.
And myself, and that motion is carried. And I'm just going to take a minute to get some more water, and I'll be right back.
That was John.
Okay. So file number BNPL 2022285 in the name of Leonard Brinker. Can the planner give the report, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. An application has been received to sever a parcel having a frontage of 48 meters, a width of 48 meters, a depth of 83 meters, and having an area of 4,000 square meters, and retain a parcel having an area of 105 acres as a severance of a dwelling made surplus through farm amalgamation. In light of transparency, the public notice summary indicates that there's a concurrent zoning amendment to remove a single detached dwelling as a permitted use in the agricultural zone. That is not the case for this property. The retained lands already has a existing dwelling on there, so it doesn't make sense to remove that as a permitted use since there's already one there. So that was simply staff error. Just the applications were very similar from the previous one, and that's how that happened. So the official plan designation, the property is designated agricultural and is zoned agricultural. The property is located along McDowell Road East, and the subject area is in total 106 acres with approximately 600 meters of frontage on McDowell Road. And the single detached dwelling was constructed on the subject land, on the lands to be severed, was previously constructed in about 1952. Planning staff considered the application to be consistent with the policies of the PPS and conforms to the official plan as it relates to consent to sever policies through staff supports this application and recommend that it be approved subject to attached conditions.
Okay. Thank you. Is there an agent or applicant on the line or present?
Mary Alden, letter breaker.
Yes, my wife and Daisy Klein, who actually is living in that house right now and on the farm. It's been in her family for over 100 years.
Okay. Anything to add? No?
No questions if you have any.
Anything from the committee to either the agent or the planner? Is there anyone online or present that wishes to speak either in favor or in opposition to this application? Okay, hearing none. Anything further from the committee? Can I get a motion from the committee, please?
Rudy moves approval.
Thank you, Rudy.
I'll second that.
Linda seconds, thank you. So file number BNPL 2022-285 in the name of Leonard Brinker. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot within an agricultural area and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Rudy?
Yes.
And Linda?
Yes.
Marcel? Yes. Myself? That is carried. Okay. So next up, we have file number ANPL 2022-288, name of Matthew Taylor. And the planner can give the report, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. An application has been received to construct a new dwelling requiring a relief of 1.67 meters from the maximum height of 11 meters to permit a height of 12.67 meters. So the property is currently designated agricultural and designated hazard lands, as well as zoned agricultural and designated hazard lands. So the subject property is located south of New Lakeshore Road outside of the urban area of Port Dover. The area of the subject lands is about 1.2 acres with about 38 meters of frontage. The subject lands are occupied by a residential dwelling, which is near where the arrow is pointing, indicating subject lands. So the new proposal to essentially construct a home is the home is no longer located at the south of the property. It's now located more towards the actual road of New Lakeshore Road. So although the property has dual official plan designation zoning, being agricultural and hazard land, where the home is being proposed, it's outside of the hazard lands. So the hazard lands policy don't necessarily apply because it's outside of that area. So the home isn't being constructed in the hazard lands. As a result, staff are of the opinion that the proposed house also meets the other provisions of the zoning bylaw, and the amount of relief being requested is minor in nature, and it's desirable for the appropriate development of the lands. Staff supports this application and recommend that it be approved.
Okay, thank you. Is there an applicant or agent online or present?
Yeah, I'm the agent, Dave McPherson.
Okay, Dave, thank you. Anything to add?
I have nothing to add. I support the planner's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the committee? Any comments, questions to the applicant or the planner? Is there any member of the public, online or present, that wishes to speak either for or against this application? Is that someone trying to get on?
That person's been toggling the whole time. The whole, like, the sounds are just one side. Maybe they're trying to talk about.
I'm not sure.
Someone in the chat, is there anything?
I don't see a one on the chat,
Okay.
so don't
Okay,
say
so,
anything.
so hearing none that. Yeah, I don't know if that's interesting. Anyway, so, hearing none that there's no one who wants to speak to this application, is there anything further from the committee? Can I get a motion from the committee?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Marcel's gonna move that, and Linda, you can second.
Yep, that's good.
Thank you. So file number ANPL 2022-288, Matthew Taylor, in accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requested relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Marcel?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yeah,
And Linda?
Yes.
And myself is carried. And that is approved. So next up, we have file number AMPL 20222293, Michelle Sakowski on Turkey Point, Ordinance Road in Turkey Point. Planner, can you give the report, please?
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct a new deck requiring relief of 0.5 meters from the minimum interior right side yard setback of 1.2 meters to permit an increased interior right side yard setback of 0.7 meters and 3.73% from the maximum permitted lot coverage of 23%. Permit a lot coverage of 26.7%. So my description is much shorter than the purpose that you can see. The reason for that is the intention of this much longer purpose and public notice summary is to make very clear or transparent the historical context of the previous minor variance in relation to the current minor variance. So it's, the intention is transparency.
Okay.
So the subject lands are located southwest of the intersection of Fair Street and Ordnance Avenue. They're approximately 592 square meters with approximately 17 meters of frontage on Ordnance Avenue. They are occupied by a vacation home and detached garage, resulting in a lot coverage of approximately 23%. So that previous minor variance, A-22/98, was approved to increase the lot coverage from 15% to 23% and reduce the minimum front yard setback from 4.5 meters to 2.3 meters. So this application seeks to further reduce the lot coverage, as mentioned, to a total of 23.73%, and further reduce the front yard setback from 2.3 meters to 0.63 meters, or about 2.07 feet. The subject lands are designated and zoned resort residential. As such, they're within the LPRC's regulatory boundaries. They submitted a comment, which is included as attachment 2, indicating no concerns. So in an effort to be as comprehensive as possible, I reviewed digital records of adjacent properties which have requested minor variance for lot coverage and setbacks on Ordnance Avenue to determine if the proposal does reflect the character of the surrounding area within the current planning policy landscape. So that table summarizes my findings in attachment 1, but there were some issues attaching it, so I've circulated it to the committee and the agent. Apologies for that. So in reviewing the subject lands and surrounding sites through these records and also in person, in conjunction with the Lakeshore Special Policy Area Community Design Guidelines, I'm of the opinion that the proposal does not meet the 4 tests And these considerations are outlined in full in my report in the attachments. In the spirit of compromise, I'd be open to supporting an addition of the deck, provided it had more of a front yard setback, which would have the anticipated effect of reducing the lot coverage. But just again, as reviewing the records and area around, I just didn't find instances where it's so close to the front yard setback, that's the limiting issue. So for that reason, I'm recommending it be refused, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Agent or applicant present or online, and that's you again. Anything to add at this time?
Yes, if I may.
Sure.
My clients, the Sikowskis, own this summer cottage at 47 Ordnance Ave. It fronts on Lake Erie. On front of the cottage is a really dinky little small open deck. It's only 5 feet wide. This small space is really insufficient to be useful, to be safe, and to enjoy its proper use as a lakeview deck. There's no safe maneuverable room on that 5-foot space to accommodate deck chairs, let alone a normal patio set, including a table and chairs, which would be normal to have on a front yard deck facing the lake, which is what these people want to do. So we're really not increasing the size of the deck massively. It's just going to be closer to the road. But we want to make it big enough that they can put up a patio set and enjoy amenity space outside of their cottage. So the sole purpose of this deck is simply to enjoy the lakeside vista. The premise of the application is to increase amenity space by making the existing deck both safe and actually usable. The proposed deck's only 20 inches above grade. And it's set on helical piers. I supplied all of that information in architectural drawings that I attached to my application that should be in front of you. We propose no change in the existing grade. Therefore, there's no negative impact to the neighboring properties, either left or right. If you attended at the property and noticed the large tree in the front yard, this deck will be behind that tree. Okay, I did attend. Okay, good. The lot grade post-construction will be the same as the lot grade pre-construction because it's set on helical piers. There's no impact to grade. There's no traffic sightline issues. The sight lines will not be impeded by the deck as it's unenclosed and it's only 20 inches above grade. In the report, the planner raised the issue that there's not ample space for access and maintenance. On the contrary, there's a 24-foot wide driveway on the left side of the cottage that runs the full length along the cottage all the way back to the garage. And because the deck is only 20 inches above grade, it can be easily accessed for maintenance from the left, right, or front. Yesterday, I was there and I stood at the front face of the neighboring cottage, number 49, and sighted straight down the faces of the cottages towards Ferris Street, and then I turned around and sighted back along the faces of the cottage towards Reserve. Of the 22 cottages between Reserve and Ferris, 11 of them are on, near, or over the front property line. Towards Ferris, the deck on 45 is on or over the front property line. The second story deck at number 43 is right up to the front property. The Crown Attorney's cottage at number 37 encroaches over the front property line and out onto the road mounts. And I can attest to the truth of that because I was the building inspector that issued the permit for her cottage and worked with her to obtain the encroachment agreement through the clerk's department. Looking back towards reserve, the front face of number 49 is on the property line, and numbers 55, 59, 61, 63, 65, 67, and 71 are all kissing for a property line. And what appears to be front yard in front of these cottages, the grass, is actually road allowance. And I can attest to the fact that when I worked for the county, it was common knowledge that the paved portion of Ordnance Ave is not on the road allowance, but is actually on the Crown Reserve or the provincial beach.
Okay.
And in the late 1990s, the province deeded back to the township of Delhi that portion of the beach that the paved portion of the road was on. So the road allowance is quite wide now because a lot of it is the lawns of the cottagers. And now the pavement that was on the beach now belongs to the township of Delhi. Moving on, notwithstanding the planner's assertion that the lot coverage proposal is excessive, this proposal is not the least bit out of character with the Ordnance Ave streetscape, and not out of character with Turkey Point in general. There are numerous examples of cottages in Turkey Point with lot coverages greater than 26%. And I'll only give 5 examples. There's hundreds of them, okay? Because I was involved in hundreds of them when I worked for the county. 394 Cedar Drive was one of my own applications. I presented this in 2018 and it was approved at 31%. 143 Cedar Drive was approved at 34%. 400 Cedar was approved at 38%. 37 Ordnance was approved at 39%. And 360 Cedar was recently approved at 44% lot coverage. So what I'm asking for is quite minimal. And the property immediately to the left of the Silkowski cottage, number 49, has in excess of 80% lot coverage, and that was approved by the OMB.
Okay.
So that's the one right next to their driveway.
Sorry, just to interject, is that the one, because I was out there on Sunday, that's the one that has the stone,
Yes,
retaining wall,
patio,
concrete
thing in front of it.
apron? Okay, just so I'm clear.
So that patio or stone retaining wall, that stone is on the property.
Okay.
Currently, this property is allowed 23% lot coverage from a previous minor variance. I'm asking the committee to grant a mere 3% increase in that in order to build a more usable, safe amenity space. This proposal conforms to the provincial policy statement, it conforms to the official plan, and it conforms to the intent of the zoning bylaw. There were no objections from the zoning administrator and no objections were raised by the building department. One Point Region Conservation Authority supports this application and have given their approval to it. Now I'm asking that this committee will grant your approval as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anything from the committee to either the planner or the applicant? Okay. Is there any member of the public, either present or online, that wishes to speak either in favor or opposition to this application? No? Can I get a motion from the committee?
Move approval.
Okay, Marcel, thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Linda. So file number AMPL 20222 9.3, Michelle Sakowski is moved to be approved in accordance with section 45.1 of the Planning Act. The requested relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Marcel?
Yes.
And Linda?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
And myself, thank you. That's approved and carried.
Before we move on, Alan, can we just
Yep.
maybe remind Dave that there's a time limit on his speak?
I think he got that.
We got your point well before you ended.
I wanted to make sure you got it, Linda, that's all.
All right. Thanks, Linda.
Yeah.
Moving on, file number AMPL 2022-295, Teresa Livingston, and the planner can give the report, please.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. An application has been received to reconstruct an existing vacation home requiring relief of 11.1% from the maximum permitted lot coverage of 15% to permit a lot coverage of 26.1%. 3.72 meters from the minimum rear yard setback of 9 meters to permit a decreased rear yard setback of 5.28 meters. Just under 5 meters from the minimum front yard setback of 6 meters to permit a decreased front yard setback of 1.04 meters and 1.77 meters from the maximum height to allow a height of 10.87 meters. So the property is zoned designated resort residential in the official plan and zoning bylaw, and the property is located southeast of the intersection of New Lakeshore Road and Cedar Street in Turkey Point. So the subject land is approximately 600 square meters with about 35 meters of frontage on Ordnance Ave, and they are currently occupied by a cottage and existing accessory structure. So as you can see before you, the lot is an irregular shaped lot. Staff recognize that even currently it's difficult to meet the front yard setback requirements, and staff recognize that the building envelope on the property is limited due to its location and how it kind of backs on, not kind of backs on, it does back onto the rear of, onto Lake Erie. So staff recognize that the reduced building envelope as a result of the lake do make it difficult to meet the zoning provisions, but staff are of the opinion that the cottage as proposed does not meet the existing character of the surrounding neighborhood in regards to the minimum rear yard setback, building height, and lot coverage that's being proposed. Staff have conducted a site visit and firmly believe that this cottage is out of context for the immediate area and is considered overdevelopment for the site. So the application proposes a lot coverage of 26.1%, and staff are of the opinion that the application as proposed is considered to be overdevelopment. It should be noted that zoning has indicated that there is a potential discrepancy between the lot coverage. So zoning has done a review and they believe that the request is actually at about 33% as opposed to 26. I've also asked the agent to follow up with the surveyor, and I don't think we've got a response at this point in time.
You do actually.
Okay, so I guess we'll get to that part. For staff's review of like the lot coverage, basically staff of the opinion that if the number, like if the, I guess we'll find out what the actual lot coverage number is, but staff are of the opinion that regardless, like 26 or above, staff are of the opinion that it's too big. In terms of the rear yard setback and the proposed cottage and the covered porch, it doesn't meet the existing character of the surrounding neighborhood. None of the existing cottages along Ordnance Avenue have like the envelope of where they're proposing to build. It would maintain a consistent like linear streetscape or rearscape, if you would. And staff believes that the incremental increase in vacation homes change the overall character of the resort area as a whole. The issues surrounding height, staff believe that based on the cottages in the immediate area, there's nothing remotely close to this height. I understand that the entirety of the building isn't 3 stories. It's kind of like it peaks up. It's only in the center that it's 3 stories. But staff are of the opinion that the height doesn't meet the character of the neighborhood and is not appropriate for the development of the property. So public feedback was received and it has been attached to the report. And those concerns were primarily surrounding the size and scale of the building, as well as shadow impacts that that property may have on their property. And then further to that, staff also received comments today at 2 o'clock. And member of the public outlined there's essentially 9 questions that I can share with the committee. I can read them out at the time. So their first question was asking if the applicant has applied to the Conservation Authority and if they've received the Conservation Authority permit approval. The second question was.
Can you just, do you have an answer to each one as you go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Absolutely.
So is there an answer to the first question?
So it's my understanding that at this point in time, the applicant has had conversations with the Conservation Authority. I would defer to the agent if there has been a permit issued. It's my understanding that at this point in time, there hasn't been. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay, why don't we, you can answer the ones that you can answer.
Okay.
We'll go through.
I can answer most of them.
Okay, then we can go over to Dave and let's get through this part first.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can actually cut to the chase on this if you want.
We'll just let Fabian finish and then.
So number 2, the person was asking if an environmental study has been conducted and results recorded as to the impact on the beach area in the front of the property regarding water quality as a result of septic systems, bathrooms. So to answer that question, that would be a Conservation Authority requirement as part of their processes. The third question was they were asking if a hydro easement, does hydro have an easement on the area where the building will be constructed? The agent provided evidence, if you will, that the hydro easement to the rear of the property has been abandoned. To answer that question, so no is the question to that. Is there a county road allowance on the property where construction is proposed? It's my understanding that the answer to that question is no, but I would have to defer to roads. I've also provided answers to these questions.
The answer is no, because I provided you a survey which shows where the building is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So they also asked if there was a written statement surrounding water quality and that, like, if environmental and water test quality projection for this proposal stating that drinking water quality will not be affected. So that question, I simply indicated that that is not something that is in the scope of the planning process. So that's not something that would be achieved through this. What is meant by retaining wall? So again, I for that question, I indicated like defer to agent or applicant because there's some questions that I didn't necessarily know the answers to. Okay. The question surrounding what are the reasons for the height surrounding it being 10.87 meters as opposed to 9.1 meters. Again, defer to agent applicant, like I'm only reviewing the proposal in front of me. So, they asked how many bathrooms for the building. It's my understanding that's the answer is 2. And in terms of the property being a private vacation home or a Airbnb, it's my understanding that it's a vacation home.
Okay.
That's the intention. So to basically conclude, the staff are of the opinion that this application does not conform to the general intent of the official plan or the zoning bylaw. It is not desirable or appropriate development for the land, and that the application is not minor, and that staff do not support this application and recommend that it be refused.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the committee to the planner?
The only question I have, and actually it's not necessarily for the planner, but the lot coverage, is it actually 26 what are they proposing? Is it 26.1, yes or no?
I'll defer to the applicant.
The answer is no. The lot coverage is 28%.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna stop you there. Back to the
Sorry?
planners. Back to the planners. If it's 28%, does the application need to be recirculated?
So technically, yes, because it's in terms of public information, but in terms of my position, whether it's 26, 28, 30, I still have the same opinion of recommending refusal.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, so if it technically needs to be recirculated, then would it be wise to defer this application and have it recirculated as needed?
I think at this point, we'll let the agent respond with any comments or.
I'm afraid to, because Linda will cut me off again.
No, I'm the chair. Linda's not the chair today, but I am, and I'll let you have a reasonable time to.
I'm going to ask that you defer it,
Okay.
because it does have to be recirculated. Because my application read 26.1%. That was based on the surveyor's comments.
Mm-hmm.
The zoning administrator challenged some of those and came up with a figure of 33%. That came back to me, but all of this is all Johnny-come-lately stuff. Like Fabian didn't communicate that to me until the end of last week, and I'm scrambled to get a hold of the zoning administrator, who was working from home on Monday, so I couldn't meet with her until yesterday.
Okay.
We debated definitions, and then I went back to the surveyors with what the zoning administrator and I worked out. The surveyors have recalculated based on that and come up with a figure of 28%, which I have submitted back to the zoning administrator. She got that yesterday, and that would be, so because of that, technically the application has to be recirculated.
Okay. And you're fine with it?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And Linda will have to listen to me drone on again in December.
I may be the chair again. We may get lucky.
Till January. December's already circulated.
So you're looking at January.
Really?
Yes. So that being said,
Yeah.
that being we
said,
had no control over that either. So
you'll get a 20-minute presentation in January.
we've been warned. Okay. So we have let's go through this anyway. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak either in favor or in opposition to the application? I do. Keep in mind that we're moving for deferral, so nothing's on the table at this time really. But I'll let you have your piece. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I will speak to it. My name is Peter Vanderplat. For the purpose of the hearing, our property is adjacent to the north. We are number 16 ordinance.
Okay.
We've been there 21 years. Looking at the application, there's really the two things that jump out to us is the relief for the permitted lot coverage. And there's just been a lot of debate on that. So but there were three aspects of it that bothered us and question that we had. One was that the 15 to the 26, which is apparently now 28, was 74% increase over what is considered to be the maximum allowed. From 15 to 26 is 74%. So to us, that was more than just a minor variance, but we'll leave that for now until we see what it actually is. The other thing, looking at the proposed conceptual plan there, the build out from the existing footprint is all directed towards our home. And the distance today to the lot line from their property, or from their structure to our structure, is about 4 meters on either side. And almost 100% of their proposed expansion is coming towards us, where there's no neighbor or anything to the south of them. So we object to this because now all of a sudden there's this wall that will be about 1 meter from our property line, where there is a hedge that we planted 21 years ago. It's about 6-7 feet tall. It's beautiful. It's healthy. It needs sunlight. And there's a grass strip. And then we maintain a garden on the south side of our cottage that we'd like to keep there. And there's some trees there as well. So we object to that build out towards our side of it. And the second thing in terms of the lot coverage is the plan refers to a covered porch on the water side of it. But that covered porch is not the whole story. It's actually the floor of a very large balcony. And the balcony's edge is about 1 meter from our property. And it will be very tall. And it looks straight into our backyard property. So in terms of privacy, in terms of peace and quiet, because in the summertime, there's a lot of entertaining going on. The entertaining is right now on the porch that's there, which is what it is. Then all of a sudden we will have 2 levels and one that is quite high, looking straight into where we always are in the backyard. So in terms of privacy, this is really, really disturbing to us and a little bit unacceptable. These lands are zoned RR, resort residential, and the bylaws are there to support vacation use. And we really feel this is overdevelopment. The second point we'd like to raise is relief from the maximum height. That's a 20% increase over the limit. Again, to us, that's not a minor thing. This becomes it's a towering structure, 36 feet, more than 36 feet tall in the old inch-pound measurements. It's a major increase over our place, the existing place, all the houses across the street, all of our bungalows were built somewhere in the 1920s up to World War I. These are very modest structures. Now all of a sudden there's this giant place. And what we're most concerned about is the shadow that it will cast, because it's directly south. If you look at the compass there, we are exactly aligned north-south. So once we have a 10-meter structure directly south of us, it's going to cast a shadow on our property, on our cottage, where that's the side where there's a kitchen, there's bedrooms, there's a family room there. It will keep that in the dark in the summertime, once we have this giant structure up there. The second thing is, we've recently investigated, we're looking at standby power, because the power does go out a lot down there. And we looked at adding solar panels to the south side, because that area of the roof line is quite large. And we could put a significant amount of solar power up there. Going to solar power, going off grid in the next 10, 20 years is something that's very valuable. A lot of people will be looking at that. I think that is the future direction for homes. There's already one home that's listed for sale on Cedar that has one of these solar panels in. Part of the feature of the listing is that it provides $7,000 to $8,000 of income per year to the homeowner. Project that over 100 years, because that structure will be there for the next 100 years. The lost income and the future lost opportunity to create solar power in the shadow of this 10-foot or 10-meter structure is significant to us. That is a loss of property value. It's a loss of enjoyment, and we just think it's an overkill. It's way too ambitious for these reasons.
Thank you. Anything from the committee? Further?
Just
go ahead, Marcel.
So what height would you recommend? Like, what would you be acceptable to?
I guess we can't go higher than the maximum allowed, right? So, I mean, they would have permission to go to 9.1 meters, wouldn't they? I couldn't object to that. So that would be it, 9.1 meters, whatever is allowed under the bylaw.
Okay. Do you have any response to that, James?
Well,
Or
I
it's
came
really
here-
not, there's not really not much point because we're deferring
no, I
anyway, but
came
if
here
you wanted
just
to
to
work.
defer, so I didn't bring my file on this
Right.
project. I have architectural renderings that I'd be happy to share with you. That,
So maybe in the time between now
yeah, if you
and,
can give me,
I've seen, I've talked to the applicant and I was told that the footprint was gonna be exactly as it is today. So I had to learn through this process that it's not exactly like it is.
okay, well, that's why we're deferring it for one thing. Okay, so
right, if you leave me your contact information, I'll share with you the architectural rendering and the actual drawings of this. That, as Fabian admitted, this is not a full 3 stories. This is basically that piece on the roof, that 3rd story chunk, if you will, is a belvedere, which is an enclosed widow's walk, if you will. The concept of this cottage is like a seashore captain's house.
Okay.
So on the roof of that would have been the widow's walk, and a belvedere is a widow's walk enclosed by windows. And that's all this is. It's in the middle of the building. It's not anywhere close to your property, but it's in the middle, and that's all it is. It's a belvedere.
So,
I'd be happy to go over that with you if you need me your contact information.
okay, that sounds fair.
But
So for tonight, we'll.
for tonight, I just want to ask you to defer it.
Okay.
So that it can be recirculated with the technically correct
Okay,
lot coverage.
okay, so just let me finish going
Yep.
through this. I think I already asked, is there anyone else present that wishes to speak either in favor or in opposition to this application?
If I may speak?
Sure thing, go ahead and state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Danielle, last name C-L-A-R-K, Clark, and I'm located at 198 Metcalf Street South in Simcoe. I agree that there seems to be quite a few privacy issues that are being overlooked for new development over existing structures, and that bylaws regarding sizes seem to be, like the minimum, seem to be being ignored a lot more than they are being considered. And this project, the current resident seems to have done quite a lot of research and is quite well versed. And it's sounding, even though it is being deferred, it's sounding very much like it will still receive approval.
Well, that's not necessarily the case. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else online that wishes to speak either in opposition or in favor of the application? Hearing none, can I get a motion from the committee?
Rudy
For
moves
deferral, I guess. Rudy, thank you, Rudy. Seconded by?
I'll second.
She's wiping my eyes, I wonder.
Okay, so Rudy moves and Linda seconds for deferral. File number AMPL 2022295. All those in favor, Marcel?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
And Alan, yes, and Linda?
Yes.
And that motion is carried for deferral.
Can I just make one more comment?
Sure thing.
Just directly to Fabian. When we talked on the phone yesterday, you said you would email me the attachments that weren't attached. and yet you didn't do that.
The, no, it was attached as a part of the report. The,
No, it's not.
it's not?
No.
It's not, okay, I can.
You were gonna send me the report.
Absolutely, I will,
and then you were gonna
one
send me
hundred
the
percent provide
attachments.
that to you. I will 100% provide that to you.
You guys take care of that.
Yeah, don't worry, I will.
Okay, finally, file number AMPL 2022292 in the name of Adam Reed. And the planner can give the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct a 12.19 by 9.14 meter accessory building requiring relief in 23.78 square meters, maximum permitted usable floor area of 100 square meters to permit a usable floor area of 123.78 square meters. The subject lands are occupied by single attached dwelling and shed. The purpose of this application is to facilitate development of a detached garage. Lands are split designated in zones. So at the front, lands near Cockshut, they're designated in zone hazard lands. And on the remainder, they're designated hamlet and zone RH. The LPRC has submitted a comment included as attached 1 indicating no concerns with the concept of the application. Staff have reviewed the proposal and are indicating it meets the forecast of waiver variance and recommended use approved. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there an applicant or agent on the line that wishes to speak to this application?
Right, can you guys hear me?
Yep, go ahead. Is this the applicant, Adam?
Yeah, this is Adam Reed on said property, 1125 Cockshut Road.
Okay, anything to add?
Nothing to add. It's on. She mentioned that it is on. There is hazard land on the north side, and I've reviewed it with Long Point Conservation Area. They've kind of given me where that line is drawn through, and the surveyors who came surveyed the land for drainage purposes. They overlaid that plot, and if anyone is concerned, it's 10 meters away. It's greater than 10 meters away from this line, which is what Long Point has told me would be anything in there would require further investigation with them. But they weren't concerned with that. I just wanted to add that. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anything from the committee? Is there any member of the public online or present that wishes to speak to this application, either for or against? Hearing none, can I get a motion from the committee? Thank you, Marcel. Marcel moves approval. Seconded by?
Rudy will second.
Thank you, Rudy. So file number AMPL 2022292 in the name of Adam Reed, in accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requested relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan, the zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Marcel?
Yes.
Thank you. And Rudy?
Yes.
And myself and Linda?
Yes.
And that is carried. That is it. Is there any other business?
Just gonna let the committee know that we had discussion about moving the time slot for our December meeting. It's still in the works. We're just thinking maybe have it earlier in the day, but I will be communicating with you once I find out if we want to do that, and if we'll have quorum if we move the time. So, and you all know that your terms have been extended to January, and the applications for the new committee will be probably posted within the next week, and I will share them with you when I find out.
Thank you, Sherry. Anything else from anybody else?
Just a question to planners. I was wondering if there's been any change in septic systems. Some of the applications have been complaining to me that now they need a septic approval of a surplus dwelling. Yes.
That's such a.
When has that happened? That hasn't happened before. In the last 2 years, it hasn't been that way.
Sorry, the requirement for a septic system?
Yes,
It depends on the context of the application. Often for severances on private services, an OSB form has been a standard requirement.
when does that happen?
I don't have the answer. Yeah.
Why would that be necessary? If the septic system is working, why would that be
So-
necessary?
So like, in the scenario that you illustrated, it was, can you repeat it again?
Well, about 2 years ago, we had a meeting with the building department, and they said a septic system is working, it's working. And that wasn't a requirement of a minor variance for a surplus dwelling. So I just wondered what's happened. I called some people in Oxford County, and they don't have that requirement. It just seems to be Norfolk.
Yeah, do we want to close the meeting and discuss offline?
That's fine.
Yeah, my understanding are when going through the consent process, and again, I can only speak on my experience having been here about a year.
Yes.
The intent is to understand and make sure that the septic system meets Ontario building code requirements. Once you're creating a lot and shifting the lot lines, you want to make sure that that distance from the septic system to the lot line is meeting Ontario building code requirements. That's the intention of the requirement for us.
When they're having building inspection or septic tank inspection, some of this is costing $1,500
So
to have a building or a building department or the county ask for a septic inspection. That's a tremendous amount of money.
I can bring your concern up to the director. Again, I can only speak on my experience in
Sure.
the past year, and that's my understanding of the intent of the requirement for the OSD form.
Yeah.
I do have some exceptions when people have, like, for example, have recently updated their septic system, like very recently to the application, we confer with the building department to see if they can be satisfied. But again, we treat it on a case by case basis.
Well,
Okay,
Yeah.
definitely a new septic system is totally changed from one that's 50 years old. But the one that's 50 years old is still working.
Right. So again, I can only comment on the intent of requiring an OSD form at the point of a consent to sever. So the intent is to ensure that it meets Ontario building code requirements. But I might leave it at that for the purposes of this meeting. And we can discuss it offline.
I'd also defer to them too.
Yeah.
There might be additional reasons that,
Yeah.
for that requirement form as well, right? And as planners, we don't review Ontario building code, right? So there might be additional reasons as well for the planning.
Yeah, we have to find out if that's a requirement, that the septic systems have to be replaced.
can we adjourn?
Yes.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder for adjournment, please? Linda,
I'll move.
seconded by Marcel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
6:50.
May I inquire to who I give my contact information to? Danielle Clark.
Danielle Clark,
I have her name.
she has it.
Danielle, I have your name and your address, so if you want to forward me your email, you can forward it to me, sherry.mott@norfolkcounty.ca.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.